First of all, why don't you tell everybody who you are?
My name is Katina Chapman.
Okay.
And I was born in England, grew up in Manitoba, and 11 years ago we moved to Nova Scotia. I married a sailor.
How did you end up out west? No water out there.
I came from England. Mom and I came from England, and my dad was born just outside of Winnipeg, so I grew up in Winnipeg. And in 1965, I took a train to Toronto, and on the way home, there were sailors on the train. Oh. And I met one, and 2 years later married him. He brought me out here. He left me here and sailed off. And 2 years later, when we were expecting our first child, we moved back west, raised a daughter and 2 sons. And then they all got married and they all left home, and we decided 11 years ago to come back here. Huh? Meanwhile, the boys, one had joined the Navy and gone west, one had joined the Navy and come east, and our daughter's in Alberta. So we decided we had to be close to somebody, and we chose to come back to Nova Scotia.
Great. So were you quilting when you
I started quilting in 2002. I was at the time a writer, and I was in a writer's group, and one of the ladies would have us for potluck, and she would have these beautiful quilts around her house. And so one day I got brave enough, and her name is Irene Roy, and I said, would you teach me to quilt? I have no patience and I don't sew. So it could end really quick. That was January of 2002, and here we are. It's an addiction. And she taught me to hand sew. She taught me everything I needed to know, and then I kind of went off on my own and did things, and we still chat. She's now 95 or 96, and I miss her more than anybody. But I'm proud when I do something. I send her and tell her what I'm up to. So that's my quilting journey. So here we are 20 years later, and I don't know how many hundreds of quilts.
Hundreds?
Yeah. The kids, the grandchildren, the nieces and nephews, babies. And sometimes just because sometimes somebody's ill and I just decide I should give them a quilt. And because of the war in Ukraine, This has been this year's project. So I have, I think, 6 quilts that I've given to Ukrainian families, 6 or 7. And so at my age, it gives me joy that that's what I can do. And if my dad was alive, he'd be wanting to be in Ukraine fighting the war. But so I make quilts, and I have one here that I just finished. So blue and yellow quilts, and so it gives me joy. I've done Quilts of Valor, 5 or 6 of those, and Portapic, I made a quilt. Humboldt, I made a quilt. It's a quilter's need. It's a quilter's thing that you do something and it's nice to give, and so that's what you do.
And show us some?
Sure. So this one is long before I lived here. These are lighthouses. They're all American lighthouses now.
Oh.
So, there. So there is probably the first one I ever did applique on. This also was a block of the month from a shop, I think in South Dakota. And again, you would get one section each month, put it together, and then you get the next section, and at the end of, I think, 9 months, it was done. And it's one of my favorites, and that's why I've kept it. I like to do kind of like little pictures in quilts.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
All right, this one is paper pieced. So each little, there's 6-inch squares. So you sew the strips onto paper. And my dear friend Irene taught me how to do this. And I did make one like this for my son for a wedding, which had 120 pieces. And it was just fun. Hours and hours and hours of work. And after all is said and done, you have to pull the paper off, all the little bits of paper, which is what I used to do sometimes when we were on airplanes.
Can you reuse it?
No, they're little. Done. So I would sit on the airplane because I don't like flying, and I'd have 20 of these, and I would sit and tear the paper off and shove it in my pocket till we got to the airport, and then I'd throw them in the trash can. So this one won an award in Mahone Bay a couple of years ago. So I call it Blue Ice. I found the border fabric at the quilt shop in Saskatchewan and just was perfect. And then I designed the flowers around it.
Oh, so that's your design as well.
Yes, the original design was different and I didn't like it. So one day I pulled those out and decided that that would kind of work well. So that's that one. This was a block of the month from Texas, I believe. So it's all teapots. Teapots for each month, starting with January and a snowman.
Oh, right.
And yeah, so it was that was fun. Noah's Ark. Oh, those little people, all those animals sitting there.
That's a lot of detail.
Yes. And then it's what they call set on point. So you make these up and then you have to put them together with the setting triangles. So,
do you have any idea of the time?
You know, I don't like to rush. I enjoy every moment, and I've spent a fortune on the fabric, so I like to enjoy it. I like to enjoy the fabric and the process, and there's no rush. But I do so every day.
Is that right?
Yes, every day. My husband naps in the afternoons, and I sew, and it works just well. This was designed by a lady in the States called Pat Sloan, and every 2 weeks she would send you the instructions to make these little blocks that are 6 inches, I think. And I think there was originally about 100, so I'm not quite sure how many I put in the quilt. And when I got it put together, it got to travel. There was a quilt show that's in the States. So it got to go to New England. I think it went to Philadelphia and a couple of other places. It traveled around and then finally came back to me many months later. So it was exciting. I didn't get to see it in the show, but a couple of people, it was in Florida. Because a couple of people I know were in Florida for the winter and took a picture of it hanging in the quilt show. So
how did you manage to get it into the show?
It's a world quilt show, so there were so many quilts from each country, and it was juried in. So I sent pictures to somebody, and it was accepted. And then I had to send it to them in Vancouver. Then they sent the quilts to somebody in the States. And yeah, so it was kind of exciting. And when they sent it back, they sent me a special label to put on the back that says World New England Tour. So
great.
It's the fun things I get to do with quilting. This quilt was a sew-along taught by a girl from Mahone Bay Guild. Her name is Tara Linus, and she designed this quilt. And those of us in the guild that wanted to got together every 2 weeks, and she taught us the next part. And so we did row by row by row, and I think finished it this last fall or this spring. And so, yeah, so a few of us did it. I changed a couple things. I did the jelly beans at the top. It was supposed to be seagulls, and I don't like birds.
Where are the jelly beans?
Right here.
Oh.
So I put those in instead.
Is that type house called a jelly bean?
The ones in Newfoundland.
Oh, yes.
The jelly bean roll,
yes.
I guess they're called. Colorful. they're like little beach houses almost, I thought. So I changed those. And what else did... Oh, and I put the turtles at the side.
Okay.
I found that turtle fabric, so I decided that would be fun.
Did you travel to Mahone Bay?
Oh, quite often. Oh, no, this was all Zoom. This is all during COVID. You know, a lot of our classes for the last 2 years have been by Zoom. So we, as a guild, we have had classes from people all over the world, Australia and the States and Canada, people that couldn't go anywhere. We've sat in our sewing room and been taught to do wonderful things. So it's been fun.
Yeah.
And you don't have to pack up. You just, you know, if you need something, you just open a drawer and choose another piece of fabric or a different ruler, and you don't have to haul a sewing machine. So the guild has done really well. So we're just back to in-person classes now. Everything we did was all Zoom. This is a mystery quilt designed by Bonnie Hunter. She does the mystery quilt every year. The colors come out on Halloween Day, and then the first clue comes out on Black Friday. And then every Friday after that till about January, and you find out how to put it together. I've done 7 or 8 of them. You never know how it's going to turn out. Each one normally has 2,500 to 3,000 pieces. But because you're doing it on a weekly basis, you don't realize that these pieces are 1.5 to 2 inches in size. So this is called Rhododendron Trail. This was last year's mystery quilt. This year's just started on Friday. So that's what I've been busy doing, is working on the newest one. I've done about 8 of them. I think I have 3. They've been wedding gifts and giveaways. I miss them, but it's fun. There's thousands of people all over the world. It's free. She does this for the people who don't have family, who don't have Christmas, who've lost somebody. It's a challenge. It's something to do, and you're doing it with 20,000 people all over the world. So you post on Facebook your colors, or your progress, or if you need help. So it's a fun thing that I do every year.
What's this called?
This one is called Bordered Diamonds, and it's designed by a fellow in England called Keith Fassett. He's a very famous, he started off as designing wool sweaters. He just loves color, and he just would knit like bold colors and design out of his head. And one day somebody said, you should do fabrics. So his fabrics are big and bold, and he loves color. He was here in Halifax about 5 years ago and did a talk on color. And so I got to see him and decided that I would attempt this. It's not quite finished. The binding still has to be finished, but the other quilt was waiting to be done first. So anyway, it's one of the brighter, bolder quilts I've made. This is the latest quilt I've made to give to a Ukrainian family. I've done 5 or 6 that I've given to Ukrainian families that have fled the war. It's what I can do. My grandparents came to Canada in 1908 from Ukraine. My dad is Ukrainian, and I grew up with my Ukrainian family. The other half of me is Irish, Scotch, Wales. So I've been making quilts for people, and this is the latest one I did.
Will it stay locally or go over?
Oh yeah. I find families and I contact them, or I have somebody who can speak Ukrainian contact them, and then I make arrangements to take them the quilt. So I've met a few families that have come. The last one was a young girl 2 weeks ago. It was her 17th birthday.
That must be heartwarming for them.
Yeah, and she's come from Kherson, so that's where the Russians are just leaving, and her home was destroyed, and she's here in Canada, safe and sound. Her family are still in Ukraine. So I was able to take, on her birthday, take her quilt, and the first thing she went, oh, Ukrainian colors. So that's why I do them. I enjoy quilting, but I also enjoy giving them away. And sometimes when I start them, I have no idea where they're going to go. So that's the latest one. It's not finished. It has to be quilted yet, but that'll be after Christmas.
You're bad.
Yeah. So I do all kinds of things other than, I like handwork. Always have. So this was a bag I made out of a panel. So it's all some machine stitching, but I beaded it.
What do you mean, beaded it? Oh, beaded.
Bead all the beads.
Look at the beads.
Yep, I beaded
How did you get those on
all by hand, one by one by one. And
what
I had
holds them together?
thread. They're all.
There's a little hole in the bead?
Yep. So
Lots of patience there.
yeah, and then the other side, I stitched all by hand. That's all. Each individual, I stitched all around. You can't tell, but I did all the black. Like it's everything on there has been stitched by hand.
I don't understand how there's enough hours in your life.
Well,
How long does it take to do something like
that, hours and hours and days, and you know, a couple hours here, a couple hours there, and so then when I don't do that, then I did this. This is done on the sewing machine. Here. This is done by hand. Then I put beads on. Then I couched threads onto it.
What do you mean couched?
So I took the ribbon and put it down, and then my machine did a stitch over top, and I did that here and here. And so, yeah. And then I got some special glue, and I glued it onto a board, so it's a
piece of art.
A piece of art. So this is a table runner or a wall hanger. So it's got stones glued onto it, and these were all individual little pieces. And the blue fabric at the back, I dyed. I figured out how to dye fabric. I've used snow, buckets of snow, and powdered dye.
All this?
Yep, the whole piece there. So I dyed it, wrapped it, and that's so all the different colors came out. So that's something else I like to do.
Where do you do all this?
I have a sewing room.
Can we see it?
Yes, that's where I spend all my time.
Okay, let's go. Quilts everywhere.
And they get changed every few months.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. This was a panel, and I hand-stitched all the way around. And I did this years and years and years ago, and it's one of my favorites.
Oh, no wonder.
Yeah, I did it all by hand. I like handwork.
So this is where you hang out.
And this is where I hang out.
What's this now?
This is a cover I made.
Oh.
There are little blocks left over, and this is my, when I retired from the library, I treated myself.
Oh.
And it's become a workhorse.
Do you like it?
Love it. Love it. Turn it on, and it does everything but talk. It's not the top of the line, but for somebody who is non-sewer, I am quite happy with it. So.
Wow. Let's have a little look around.
So, yeah, my husband built that for me. It's got all my gadgets on it and stuff, and I surround my stuff with interesting things. I bought that at a yard sale for, I think, $5. But I like the handwork, and I've since learned that it's a famous technique in another country. The shells were all here, which I
Made
loved.
for you.
So yes, I filled them up. I filled everything up.
What's all this?
Bits and pieces. I buy wool, or when I do, art quilts, and I want to put a piece of wool on it. I've used wool for water, blue water. I've used it for trees. There's a container of beads in there. I think there's probably, I don't know how many thousands of beads are in here. So I buy beads. I go into all kinds of shops, and so I have everything, buttons, and all embroidery thread.
Wow. How do you know where it all is?
Right here. I have searched some days because I know I have something, and I've had to search for many hours to find that one button or bead that I want.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I like to do. I made
What are these?
They're eggs I put out at Easter time, and they're all embroidered, all done by hand. And then you do 4 pieces, and you put them together, and then you stuff them with stuffing. Now, I've given a lot away, but these are the ones that are left. So that was... And this is a similar thing. This is also felted wool. It's the newest thing I'm doing. There's a set of 12 of them. I have 3 done.
What are they, pot holders?
Nah, they're just dust collectors. I put them out. I don't know what I'm going to do with the trucks. Maybe someday they're heavy, so you can't put them together as a quilt. They would weigh a ton. Because I go to the rug hooking shops, and I buy the wool that they cut up for rug hooking.
Yes.
I buy it to make this kind of stuff. So. And
what's this?
This is this.
Mm.
This was a challenge. And there's works on progress. So it's got all
You
this.
didn't stitch that.
No, it's special fabric, and you put it together, and then you beat it. The finished one is over there.
The finished one?
Yeah.
Is this one the same?
Yeah, whatever beads I put in it. So, yeah, tough to go through my sewing machine. So my neighbor makes dog collars and has an industrial machine. So she managed to finish off the part that my machine would not do. This is the new mystery quilt that I just started on. So there's the first pieces. And those are the colors so far, plus orange. So it's going to be an interesting looking quilt.
Did she tell you the fabric to buy?
No. She just tells you the colors. And then you dive into your stash. And then you go to the store. And you buy... She gives you paint chips, colors.
Okay.
And the paint chips are over there. You take the paint chips to your local store and you match up the more variety, because it's meant to be scrap, the more variety, the better. So that's what happens.
What's this one?
That's called Color My World.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it was. Now, this one was a block of the month from the Quilt Show. The Quilt Show is a membership online, and once a year they do a block of the month. If you're a member, you get the pattern monthly for free, and that was, I believe, 2 years ago.
This is the same one that Kelly's working on.
Yes, I saw that. I saw that she was working on it, and I thought, I remember trying to put those together.
I don't know how you get it so accurate.
It was interesting. The center went together much better than I could have imagined. The outside took some discussion, but it finally got done. And then when it was done, I took it to the quilter and said, famous words we say, I hope you can quilt this out. Like, make it good. So yeah, that was a couple of years ago. That was fun. I enjoyed that. And my quilting journey has taken me somewhere I never expected. I was a librarian for a few years and a writer, and I met a very famous Canadian writer, mystery writer, and she saw a library quilt I'd made online, and she said, I would like that quilt. And I know a writer who would put you in her next book. And I said, okay, let's do that. So these are the books.
Oh.
I've been in 3 of her books. Her name is Gail Bowen. She's a mystery writer. This is, I think she's at number 21. Her first books came out in the 90s. They're basically centered around Regina. And, yep, she's the same protagonists in the book, but the stories grow and the people age. And so I think this was the first book.
How does your quilt fit in?
It doesn't. She got the quilt. I became a mid-40s silver-haired lawyer.
I see.
In the book.
Ah.
And then she put me in another book. And they're just this mentions, just, and using my full name, my all her books, no matter whether you're whatever nationality you are, she insists with her publishers that the correct, names, not just made up names, right? So I am Katina Chapman, a lawyer in 3 of her books. So that was interesting.
I guess.
And I can tell you a story. When I excitedly sent an email to my 3 children and told them I was going to be in a book, one of my sons said, "Thank God you don't know the author of 50 Shades of Grey." So my quilting journey has taken me many places.
You mentioned a royal room on the way down the hall.
Yes, 1 bedroom in the house has got, because of my British ancestry, and I was taught by my mother about the Queen from when she was small. She used to send birthday cards to the Queen. And so she taught me about the monarchy, and so I have in my 1 room many plates. I have a set of plates for the Queen Mum. I have Diana, and I have the Queen Elizabeth. There's a certificate in there from when I was in school for the coronation. We were each given a certificate. Now that's going back 1953. Mm-hmm. And then I have various cups and saucers and things. So, yeah, we call it my friends in Saskatchewan called it the Royal Room. And it continues. So.
Are we allowed to see it?
We can.
So this is the Royal Room?
This is the Royal Room. So there's a coronation certificate we were given in school. The rating has faded, but it's 1953. And here's the Queen and her parents and Diana. And here's...
And this is the one you were telling me, the Queen.
Yeah, there's the Queen.
And who's this?
This is my grandmother. Her name was Pauline Angel, and she was an artist model. She came from England and got a job in Winnipeg. She saw advertised in the paper as an artist model. And she was an artist model until she died when she was 75 of cancer. So there were paintings of her all over Canada. She was quite the lady. And there's the Queen Mum. There's a set of Queen Mum.
Is that the ages of her?
Yeah, that's her from when she was little all the way up.
Wow. How did you manage to get all that?
Well, once upon a time we owned a framing store and a gift store and Bradford Exchange, and if it was royal, it was in my house.
So what about the quilt? Is that royal?
This is the first Bonnie Hunter mystery I did. I believe it's called Easy Street. So it's got hundreds of pieces in it. And then I made the pillows with that same technique. I made the pillows to match. Mm-hmm. So, and then I made these, and these are Christmas pillows I recently by hand. So yeah, it's what I do. And when I'm not quilting, I do genealogy. So I've been researching our families, which is...
Do you sleep at all?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I sew in the afternoons. Mornings are for housework and chores, and I sew in the afternoons, and I sew in the evening for an hour or so, and then head downstairs to watch TV with my husband. And yeah, I pace myself. I'm getting older. When I get up from sewing, there's a few aches and pains. So, and here's Abby.
So, quilting is your passion?
Yes, and I never would have expected it because my mother never sewed. So I went to Catholic school, and in grade 9 I went to a public school, and they were sewing, and I had to sew. And my father found a sewing machine somewhere, and the two of us learned to thread it. And it was not a fun thing to do for me. And over the years, every so often, I'd get a sewing machine at a yard sale, and I'd try to make curtains or something. But my mother-in-law was a sewer, and she made the most fantastic clothing for us and our kids. And I thought, why am I doing this when Doris makes these lovely things? She would probably be amazed to see me now with this fancy sewing machine and piles of fabric, and that I actually learned to quilt. So, yeah. So I still do not sew. People, don't ask me to do zippers. Don't ask me to repair things. I make quilts.